Good evening, everybody. Welcome to sort of the last kind of this format of class for CS410J Advanced Java Programming. So we're kind of here at the end. Next week's the final exam. This is the last sort of like interactive coding session that we'll have. Here's what's on my plate for tonight. First, there were some good questions and commentary on the Google community over the last week about Google Web Toolkit, GWT. And so I wanted to open up first for sort of questions that you have, concerns, struggles. And after we get those addressed, what I'd like to do is walk you guys through writing some GWT code. So what I was going to do is take the Pac-Man kata that we've been working on for the last couple of weeks and put a GWT front end on that. And I think it will give you some, well, I hope it'll show you sort of what you need to do to get all that client-server stuff going, all of the, the async and the service simple and all that stuff squared away, and then also give you, show you sort of what it's like to use some of the widget classes and work in dev mode and stuff like that. So that's my plan for tonight. What would you guys like to talk about tonight? Yeah.
Maybe you could cover this when you go over that, but I was running into trouble with using Maven GWT run when I use that command. And if I have, I'm debugging something, I get very little feedback in terms of why it's failing. So I open it in
on
the
stack
browser,
exception, on stack trace?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same problem when I was working on it last night, and I found like something we could do, something that'll help.
Okay.
That, yeah, cool. I'll make sure to.
So you go over that.
I'll make sure that's there in the, in the example. Anything else? Any other question? Anything else you'd like to talk about tonight? No? Okay. I hope everybody has started their GWT project. I know at least one person who has finished it. So, slackers. And, no. And there were some good questions on the list. Where are people at right now? What are some things that were confusing? What are some interesting learnings that you've had over the last week that you'd like to share? Nothing? Stunned silence? You're all looking really tired. And I don't think it's the heat. I hope I'm not keeping you up too late working on Google Web Toolkit stuff. Bear with me for a couple more hours. I think you'll find this enlightening. And I think it'll help you then drive your Project 5 to completion. Okay, well, yes, question?
I think quiz was tough.
I've heard that. The quiz
was not enough.
What was tough about the quiz?
Everything.
I have to be completely honest here. I have no idea what the questions were. I probably wrote them like 6 years ago and I forgotten. So, okay, like difficult as in it's like, oh, this is what he expected me to know, or it's like, oh, I thought I was supposed to.
He said like what are the patterns where GWT
like the 3 steps.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that was. I thought I made a point to stress that in the screencast, right? And so it's create your widgets, lay them out, and hook up events, and we'll see examples of that tonight. Okay, well, sorry about that. Remember, the lowest quiz grade is dropped, and I know it was probably that one that you had forgotten to do that one week, and hoping that would be dropped, but that's the way it goes. Sorry. Anything else? Any comments, feedback? Okay. Should we just get started writing some GWT code? Okay, let's do it then. Okay, so in preparation for tonight, I did the following. So I used the Maven archetype for Project 5, just like you guys did, to create an airline project. And then I spent a whole bunch of time renaming stuff. I didn't want to drag you through all that tonight. So what I ended up with is the following. So this should probably look pretty familiar in terms of the classes that you've got. But instead of like airline stuff, instead of like the airline main or whatever it's called, I have a class called Pac-Man kata, which is my entry point. That's where the GWT application starts. And then instead of the airline service, I have the Pac-Man service and the Pac-Man async, and then the Pac-Man service impl. Right now, though, they're still doing the airline things, so I really haven't changed that much about the client code itself. So I'm gonna run GWT. Well, let's see here. Let's do a clean. Let's do a package. So I'll go through and I'll clean everything. Oh, by the way, if you are so inclined, if you want to like whatever you named or whatever, this is all up on this repository on GitHub, and so you can see, you can go look at the diffs and stuff like that to figure out like what I renamed. Probably not terribly interesting. Anyway, so now it goes to files, builds the war, everybody's happy, and now I will Maven GWT run. So this will launch development mode, our old friend, click launch browser, opens it up. Oh, my laptop's working a little hard. Okay, so now, so everything is still like called ping and everything like that, and when I click ping, I get my flight. So that's where we're at. So like all I've done is renamed a bunch of stuff. There's no new functionality. Let's start writing some new functionality. Okay, so I'm working on my Pac-Man kata. And the user interface I want has two parts to it. The first is going to be a place where I can edit the board. So I'm going to have a text field where you can draw out the board, and then a button that'll say like play the game, and then that will change to a different user interface where then you've got Pac-Man and all the dots, and you can go and consume it. That's kind of what I'm aiming for. And I probably should have drawn a picture of it for you, but imagine in your mind what that could look like. Okay, how do I get started? The first thing I want to do is I want to figure out sort of the contract between my client and my server. Well, I could do it that way. No, actually, I'll take a different approach. I'll do it visually first, which might make a little bit more sense. So, and well, I guess you can't see it on the recording, but, and I guess I can't draw it for you because there aren't any dry erase markers. Really, kids? Anybody have a dry erase marker? Thank you. Okay, so here's what I'm aiming for. I'll draw it over here where there's a lot of room. Okay, so I want two. I want two user interfaces. The first one will be for editing a Pac-Man board. So I want to have a text area. So text area is really that box of text, right? And where I want to be able to draw my Pac-Man board, something like this, and then. Here, and you can, whatever, go nuts, be creative. Got a Pac-Man on it, and I want to have a button that says like save and play. And I also want to be able to configure how big the board is, and so I'll have like a label that says number of rows, and then a text field for the number of rows, and then, well, I think I'll do it all in one line, but two. Number of columns, and a text field for that. And so yeah, I can say like 4 rows and 5 columns, and it'll I want it to be smart. So as soon as it loses keyboard focus, I want it to adjust I want to validate the number that you've entered, and then automatically adjust the size of the board. And so first I need to build. So I want to build this thing first. Okay, so, you can't hear me that well in the recording. Well, whatever. What GWT widgets would you use to build this user interface? That's the easy one. Okay, button, very good. Button down here. What is this again?
Form for area.
Text. Yeah, text area, text box. Yeah, these are text boxes. This is text box. And remember the name of the class for this? Just text right there. What? It is a label. Yeah, that's a label. Okay. Okay, good. So those are my widgets. And you remember what the 3 steps were in constructing a UI? Create your widgets, lay them out in hook events. So I need to lay them out. Now we need to figure out, okay, what are the layouts that we're going to use? And those are like those panels. So do you guys remember what Well, what kinds of panels can we use to lay out this UI?
You need a horizontal panel for the label.
Very good, yeah. So this right here, this guy will be a horizontal panel. Okay. What else? Oh yeah, right. So yeah, actually let's just do that. So each one of these will be a horizontal, and then this guy right here will be a vertical panel. Like that. Anything else?
Your root panel.
You will need the root panel. I was thinking something else beyond that. This whole thing, I would use a dock panel, where this is the south, this is the north, and this is the center. Is that familiar to you at least? Did you guys read about and sort of maybe experiment a little bit on your own about this stuff? Okay. Okay, great. So now I've kind of got the drawing here. Probably should have done the computer so that people at home can watch it, but come to class, seriously. So now I got to implement this. So I got a picture. It shouldn't be too hard. Famous last words. Okay. So instead of adding a button to my root panel, I'm going to add one of these things. Now, in GWT, all these UI components are objects, and so I'm going to write. So this whole thing is going to be an object. So I'm going to have a class that represents this whole thing. And in my Pac-Man kata, sort of the game, if you will, is called a level. There's a level of each game. So I'm going to call this a level editor. So instead of adding that button, I'm going to say I'm going to add a new level editor. Okay. I'm just going to start from here. Create class. I want it in the client. It's going to be for client side. Do I want to add to get? You bet I do. Okay. Okay, so created this new level editor, and it says it extends a widget and implements isWidget. That's true, because IntelliJ looked at the object, the signature of the add method, and said, oh, okay, great, it takes like a widget or an isWidget, and it was smart enough to figure out that it could be either. Now, a widget is a very abstract type, and probably not all of that, and way too high level for what we want. Instead of just a widget, we sort of look at the top level thing. It could be a dock panel, right? And a dock panel is a widget, right? It still can be assigned and everything like that. So okay, great, a dock panel. So okay, now we're going to need our constructor, public level editor. And let's start building stuff. So, okay, so the first thing, let's look at the the north panel. So what are we going to need there? So we're going to say this.add, and we'll have a, what do you want to call those? Sort of that things up at the top. It's the row and column, so like row and column configuration, row and column panel, row and column panel. So create row and column panel. And we're going to add that in the north. Okay. Now a row and column panel is going to create something that is a widget. That's probably cool. And what's that going to be? Okay, so let's just do something simple to see if it works. Let's just have it return that new label. Label and number of rows. Let's just see if we've got that much working. Okay, so what are we doing here? We've got our level editor object. It is a dock panel, which means that it has a method where you can add stuff to it, contents of the container, to various portions of the or various regions of the dock panel. So we'll add just simply this row and column panel. Right now, we're just going to do the labels to see if it works. And how do we test if it works? Well, all I changed was client code, so all I need to do is reload the UI. Thinks about it. Oh, good. Number of misspelled row. Okay, so now it's rows. So you understand what happened there? You tell me what happened there. Why am I telling you? So what did I just do? Oops. Still thinking about it. There it is. Sorry? Right, that's all I got. And so I put, so right now, here, so this whole thing is my root panel, and I added my level editor, and all the level editors got there right now is this one label number of rows.
So the north panel, or the north, is taking up the entire root panel right now.
And you're just probably not seeing the rest. Right. So it's, I'm pretty sure the height of the north is the height of the tallest widget in that region. Yeah. So yeah, if I were to put like a big image in there, it'd probably be as high enough. Yeah. Okay. So, and I think the piece of magic here that I hope you appreciate is that I changed some Java code, and in order to see the effects of that Java code, all I need to do is reload in my browser. And that's what the GWT development mode with the GWT run, that's what it gives you, is that rapid feedback, which is akin to what you get if you're just developing in JavaScript. But now you have all the Java tools that you like. Okay, or that I tell you to like. Okay, so now, so now let's just do a number of rows. Let's instead of returning, instead of this label, let's have a label and a text field. So just take this and turn it into a label using our friend the refactoring tools, and we'll also have a text area, and this will be number of rows text area equals new text area. Text area, I believe a text box. That's a good question. How would I know whether I should use a text area or a text box? I go to the API documentation. So if you do a Google search for GWT API, it lands you at this page. And here you've got Java docs for all of the classes, all the GWT classes, right? And so if you look in the package com Google GWT user client UI, so GWT user client UI, here you have a whole ton of interfaces, and then scrolling down below here you have your classes, which are which a lot of them are widgets and panels and things like that. So yeah, so let's do text search for text. Whoa, that's meta. And oh, look, directional text helper doesn't sound like what I want. Password text box, rich text area. So, well, yeah, I guess I already have it open too. But I was like, okay, right, this is text area. It's like, well, that's a two-dimensional thing. What do I want? That's just just a row of text. I want text box. So, right, there's text box, there's text area. In this case, I want text area. Okay. Okay, cool. So now I want.
You want text box this time.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so there actually was a question there, not just a yes. I want text box. Thank you. Oops, I need to import it. Yes. Getting ahead of myself. Thank you. Text box. No, really, text box. Okay. And so I got my label. Got my text box, and I want to put both of these in a horizontal panel. So horizontal panel. Let's call it panel equals new horizontal panel. And then panel dot add label, oops, label, panel dot add number of rows, blah, blah, blah. And what I want to return from this guy is not the label anymore, but the panel. Panel. Okay. Go back and reload. Number of rows, psh, big huge thing. Oh, big huge thing. I don't want them to have like 10 billion rows. So I will go back to the Java docs and figure out for text box how wide is that thing. And for those of you who haven't looked at the Java docs yet, they tell you a little about CSS. We'll get back to that later. They also give you a nice example of how to use it, how to do things like add key press handlers. But really what I'm looking for is, oh my god, look at all that stuff. Okay, I'm not going to read all of that. I'm going to use IntelliJ to tell me that number of rows, what are the things that I can set? Set visible length. Well, that sounds like the number of cells or the number of characters I want visible. Let's just do 3. Reload. Oh, that's so much better. Okay, number of rows there. Okay, that's cool. Now I want to create the other text field. And I could cut and paste a lot of code, but I feel like I want to refactor. So the things that are going to be common is like the label string. So label, oops, like label string, and then I just want to pass that dude in, and I want to get back. I want to have it return the text box. So I'm just going to turn this into a method right now. So that takes get widgets. That's an interesting name of it. I want to say create label, create text box with label. Okay, and it returns a horizontal panel. That's not exactly what I want. So, or is it? No, what I want is I want to pass in the label. I want to return the text box because I want to store it in a field in a second. And I still want to create the label, and then I want to add it to the panel. Horizontal panel. Oops, it's just getting a little big there. Yes, on a panel. So then pass in the panel here. I'm going to return the, oops. Oh, and then panel here. This horizontal panel. Sorry, there's something else I want to add. The panel here is a vertical panel. Vertical panel. Vertical panel. Panel equals new. Vertical panel. Blah, blah, blah. Get rid of that for the time being. Inline this dude. Fix this dude. This is, I'm just going to call this parent instead of panel. And I'm going to return the number of rows text box. Okay. And then, yeah, that should be okay. Oh wait, no, I don't add it. I don't ever add it to parent. So then I say parent.add panel. So basically, what I just did is I just created a method that says, hey, here's a label, and here's the vertical panel that's going to then contain the horizontal panel with the label and the text box. My experience in writing GWT or really any UI code is that it helps have like really small methods because you end up doing kind of crazy stuff like this where like create all these containers and laying out widgets and stuff like that. And it just gets really easy to have like these big, huge methods that are really, really hard to read. Okay, I'm just going to do a quick sanity check here, see where we're at. It should look exactly the same. It does. That's good. Any question? Yep.
I still think you could put a variable of integers in the box. So maybe set max.
Oh, say max length also? Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Okay, cool. I like that. And actually, while I'm here, I'm just going to rename this because it's not always going to be that guy. It's just going to be text box. Okay, so now let's reload that. Still looks good. Now let's call it again with number of columns. Yay! Okay, not the best looking thing. We can adjust spacing and padding later if we so desire. Okay, So now I've got my level editor, and it's got number of rows and number of columns. I'm going to commit these changes off. What have I changed? Level editor, oh, and the Pac-Man kata itself. So, you create a class for editing a level. Right now, the user can enter the number of rows and columns. Well, not really, but anyway. Okay, commit that off because we've got something that works. Okay. Next thing, let's add the text area. Okay, so we'll also add, this time, create text area, and we'll add that in the center. Okay, and sure, who cares? Return new text area, and well, let's just see what that gives us. Okay. Well, that's kind of some interesting, nice default size, but probably not what we want. So now let's have let's introduce some defaults here. So like the first time we see this, let's start off with like a 5x5 level. Okay, so which means that I'm going to want like the number 5 here, the number 5 here, and here I'm going to want a 5x5 text area. So the first thing, so let's do some refactoring here. So I want, well, let's see here. Let's create some like this. We'll say initial number of rows equals 5. Oops. Initial number of columns. Oh my gosh, Dave can't type. Equals 5, and so I want the row and column panel to have the initial number of rows and the initial number of columns. Pass those dudes in, and I want the same thing for the text area. Oh, thank you. Initial number of columns, initial number of... So I did it again. Of course, they're the same number, so I probably wouldn't have caught myself. Okay, so this is neat. So I can now initialize that, and now I say not only number of rows, but now I need to pass in initial number of rows here. I can just pass in initial number of columns here, and I got to change this signature, add int a second parameter. Boy, does that sound awesome! And I want to call it not this, but I just want to call it name. I want it to be initial value. Pass in the int, refactor there. Okay. Now I have this initial value that nobody uses, so I can just say textbox.set text. I think is the name. Yep. And then I need to convert that int into a string, which is string value of. Okay, now it's all happy there. Now I got to do the same thing. I think that's everything I need to do there. That's good. Now I need to create the text area, change the signature there, initial number of rows, initial number of columns. Now I need to do some setting on this guy. I'll create a variable here called text area. Text area dot set character width. Well, visible lines, that should be the number of rows. Initial number of rows, and then text area dot set character width, which is initial number of columns. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Huh. Okay, I'm not too sure about that one. This number should be correct. Okay. So, okay. What did you notice here? I think when I do this, what I notice is that I can use the tools that I'm used to. I can use IntelliJ, right? You see all the refactorings, all the renaming, and all that. Wow, it took care of it all for me because this is Java that I'm working with. IntelliJ knows about Java. I think it's smart to know that we're doing GWT stuff, but that's not really what's important, right? So I can use all the tools that I'm used to just work at the same speed writing my web UI application as I could my, my command line or my REST application. Okay, well that's pretty neato. Let's commit these guys off. And let's say this is initially, oops, have a 5 by 5 level. Okay, so the 3 phases of UI development. Create your widgets, and I did those. Lay them out, yep, did those. Okay, and hook up event listeners. Okay, now we're on that. So here's what I want to do. I want to say, well, when I go and I edit this, and let's say I have it, and I want 10 rows. When I hit Tab, I want it to automatically adjust then the size of my text area. So when I hit Tab, or when I click outside the text box, it triggers what's called an on blur event. So there's like on focus is when it receives keyboard focus, and when it loses, it blurs. So what I need to do is I need to hook up a listener that will listen for that on blur event, and then go and get the values out of these text fields, get the values as strings, turn them into ints. If they're valid ints, then adjust the size of the text field. Sorry, text area. So that's what I need to do. Okay. So let's start out first with adding a blur handler to the text fields. So it's your correct. Okay. So here's where to create the text box. Actually, I'm just going to do that here. Okay. So text box. So I'm going to say text box dot add blur handler. New blur handler. Okay, so it says on blur. So when you get the blur event, we're going to do something. Okay, what do we want to do? This method is getting kind of big, so I'm going to add another method here, which is update size of text area. Okay. And I don't want an anonymous inner class. I want on the outer class. It'll just be easier to read that way. Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to get the text values from each text field, convert them to ints, and then set the size of the text box. Okay, so I need to get the value from the text box. I don't have that, so what I need to do, this is why I returned the text box here, so they can store it in a field. So I'll say, actually I can just do this. Can I say put this into a field? Ooh, I did. Okay, and we'll call it not text box label, but we'll call it number. Oops. We'll call it number of columns text box. Okay, let's add a field there, and do the same thing here, and call it number of. Oh shoot! I messed it up. I did. You guys got it. My rows, my columns confused tonight. And there's a field. I'm sorry, the refactoring that I'm using, or I'll just use the, instead of using the, so I do the whole expression, and I do refactor, introduce, sorry, extract field, or for me, option command F. That creates a new field, call it number of columns, text box, and it assigns it. Super awesome. As you can see up here, now we have those two dudes. It's giving me a warning because it's like, hey, wait a second, this guy isn't used anyplace. Why don't you just make a local variable? Patience, IntelliJ. Okay, so now up here in update size of text area, I want to say the following. I want to say int number of rows equals. Okay, so what do I need to do? I need to get the value of the text. I need to get the value of the text box, convert it into an int. If it's not an int, I should pop up some error or something like that. So I'm going to put all that functionality into a method, which I'm going to say get int value of text box, and I will pass in the number of rows text box. Okay. Create it here. It returns an int, just text box. Okay. So string value equals text box dot get value. And so now I really want to return integer dot parseInt of value. But guess what? I can throw an exception. Well, actually, let's see what happens when it does throw. Oh, let's see what happens when it throws an exception. Yes, because something bad will happen. Okay, so now let's go back here. Let's reload. Got nothing here. So now if I just do this, it's fine. But if I put it in this, oh.
You didn't finish the upper function. Update size interval doesn't.
Huh?
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. Right?
It doesn't have to. It should parse the text box. Okay. So am I getting anything over here? That's really interesting. Oh, yeah. Never mind. Huh. I would have had to just to blow up. I wonder if it spat something out to the JavaScript console. So modern browsers have either plugins that you can install or tools that like built in, like Chrome here, where you can get stuff like developer tools to let you inspect things and anything to the JavaScript console. Okay, so this should blow up with something. It's not, and I'm confused. So I'm going to run debug mode. So I'm going to say maven gwt debug. So maybe this isn't doing what I think it's doing. So it's saying, hey, I'm waiting for you to attach on port 8000. So okay, I will attach. I think I actually have it already. Here on port 8000, I'm just going to call it localhost. I will attach to that. It says I am all connected and everything like that. That's super cool. And so now I think I'm getting the blur event that I'm expecting. So it's complaining. It's like, hey, your server went away. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm just going to reload. So now when I reload and it loses keyboard focus, it hits this. Okay, so what am I doing wrong here? So this should be super cool. That integer.parseInt. Yay. Because the other one. Okay. So that's all fine. And now when I put in there, merfed. Now this, I put something in there. And I lose keyboard focus. Now it comes to that. So I'll step into that. The value is 5AS. And I get integer.parseInt. Okay, and so now it is off in exception handling land. And I keep going. And what do I get here? Oh, I don't get anything. So I think this is what you were saying before, that like the exception handling, like what gives. I'm trying to remember what to do about that. Yeah, Jetty, yeah. So like, oh, in dev mode you don't get any? That's hella lame. Okay. Did anybody say hella anymore? Did anybody really ever do? Okay. Never mind. Okay. Okay, well that's kind of a pro tip. Does anyone say pro tip anymore? That, you know, if you think something should go wrong and it's not, it's probably because it's not giving you all the feedback that you need. So anyway, so let's see what happens when it does. When something does go wrong. See, they should be able to catch the number format exception. I'm just going to do a window.alert. Oops. Window.alert. Value. Oops. Value is not a is not a valid number. Think about it. So now it's all happy that, how the heck? Oh, it doesn't compile. What does it complain about? Missing return statement. Oh, that would do it. Right. Return 0. Actually, return -1. What do I want to do there? Not sure. Huh, I'm surprised GWT didn't complain about that. Because usually when it doesn't compile, it complains. There we go. Value 5f is not a valid number. Okay, so it gets that much. So now, yeah, I know. I want to fix it now. There you go. Okay. So number of rows, blah, and then we'll just do number of columns equals number of columns text. Columns text. Oops, columns. Yep. Okay, so we got the number of rows and the number of columns. And then, oops. Yeah, I'm not too sure what to do about error handling here. I hate doing stuff like, you know, if number of rows not equal -1, that was greater than 0, maybe it'd be better. Greater than 0, and number of rows, going in the wrong order. Rows, columns greater than 0, than, and then set text area size, number of rows, number of columns.
Why did you say you hate doing?
Oh, it's like magic numbers and crap like that. So probably the right way is to like have to pop up an alert and then like rethrow the exception, and then or maybe just pop up the alert. Maybe that is the right way to do it. And then something ought to catch. So you wouldn't want to do this in real Java code, right? Because then it's like you issue your error message and then you dump the stack, and like who wants that? But since this seems to be, well, let's see what this does. So yeah, let's get rid of that, get rid of this. Let's just see what this does. Reload. So you get the exception. Well, we haven't really done anything else.
Would you want to also change focus back to the offending box?
Oh, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. That'd be great. That'd be like bonus feature. That'd be like, but yes, yeah, right. Think about the user experience, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I like that. I could do that. So, oh yeah, in text box, okay. So not only pop-up alert, but then also say textbox.setFocus. Focus true. I think that'll work. Let's give that a try. Reload. 5D. A number. Oh, look, and there it is. Hey, I like it. Yeah, there you go. Wow, wave of the future. It's so awesome. Okay, so but you see here, like I'm exploring the API. Now I already knew about set focus, and so what I expect you guys to do though is to like when you say, wow, it'd be really cool if I could get keyboard focus, go back to the Java docs or find an online resource or wherever to figure out how to do that. Okay, so yeah, so now we don't think we need this silly check anymore. Now we could, but I'm not trying to make this terribly robust because really what I'm trying to show you is how this stuff works. Okay, so now I want to set the text area size, and I don't have the text area size. I don't have the text area yet, so I need to go and figure out where I created the text area. Here it is, create text area. And I'm just going to, let's see here. Yeah, I'm just going to store this guy off in a field. So actually, can I just say that, turn it into a field? Yeah. Huh, cool, I did. Okay, so now that's a field. And now I want to say, actually what I want to say, oh, check this out. What I want to say is, well, I want to say want to say the following. Yeah, I guess all I want to say is like these two dudes right here, right? So, I'm sorry, no, not those guys, the text area. Where's the text area? Now I can see it all. So like these two guys right here, and not initial number of rows, just like number of rows. So I'm going to just copy these. I'm going to say set text area size down here. I'm going to paste this. Instead of initial number of rows, I'm just going to have number of rows, number of columns, number of rows, not the whatever the hell that was. Yes. And then number of columns. And okay, everybody's all there. And I'm going to replace that stuff I cut and pasted from with set text area size with initial number of rows, initial number of columns. A little refactoring right there. Okay, so now we set the text area size. Okay, now when I reload, it's 5. And if I change it to 50, it's now huge. And if I changed it to 60, it's now huge. I can get rid of this guy so you can see the bottom. Wow, it's way too big. Okay, cool. Event handling. So do you see what we did, right? And how we said okay, and how we built it up. We started with the text box. So here in this method where we're creating our text box, say, hey, not only create the text box and configure it, like say, here's how big it is, and here's how much you can see, and here's what its initial value is, but oh yeah, when it loses keyboard focus, go and updates the size of the text area. And notice how we had to turn things that were local variables, like the like the text box and text area, into fields, so that one method in my class creates the object and initially configures it, but then stores it off into a field, in a private field, so that some other method, the one that's called eventually by the event handler, can go and get that widget and then work with it, get its value and do something. It'll get the value of the text box or then adjust the value of the text area based on that. Okay. Getting some nods. Okay, that's good. Okay. So there's one more thing I want to do before the break. Okay, so let's see here. So I'll update the size of the text field. Oops, text field when the text box, or the number of rows, columns, text box loses keyboard focus. Speaking of losing focus, just a couple more minutes, guys, and then we'll break. Okay, so let's reload this so it's not so huge. Now, this is where I'm going to, maybe 10 by 10, no, 5 by 5 is fine. So here's where I'm going to enter in my, my drawing, and so I want maybe a board that looks like this, and then I want Pac-Man, and I want maybe an empty row, and oh, this font doesn't look very good because what I really want is fixed with font, right? What I really want is Courier. Okay, so this, and now let's see here, fonts and things like that. Can I adjust that with GWT? So okay, I want to have a my text area. Where's my create text area? Create text area, and can I say something like text area dot set font? No. How do I do that? Well, turns out the way you do that was the following. Do you guys know what CSS is? Cascading Style Sheets. Okay, so it's basically a way of, hey, you've got HTML, you've got your DOM, you've got all of here are all of the widgets that are rendered in your browser, and you can do things like say, hey, I want that widget, and I can set the style on that widget, and so you say, I want this this field to have a foreground color of red and a background color of blue, blah, 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 blah. And the way you do this is you can either have it inline or you can have something called a style sheet, which is a separate file or a separate area of your HTML that says, well, hey, listen, any element that has like a certain ID make that make that thing bold. Or you can also establish classes of elements to say anything that is labeled as like a has the class left header justified to the left or whatever. In GWT, here in the Java docs, let's go to text area because then we're trying to style. If you look at the well, maybe we should just look at it. So if we go back to developer tools, which is Command Option I. That's intuitive. Okay, and we use the element inspector. We can go up to this guy and say, okay, great. We can look at this guy. Actually, when you hover over it, oops, or right here, the class of this text area is GWT-text area. So this is HTML speak for the following. It says, if you have a you can have CSS rules based on that class. So you can have CSS says .gwt-text area, and then you can put CSS inside there. So let's say I want all of my text areas to have a fixed width font. I want them to all be in Courier. Okay, so I'm going to do that by the following. I'm going to get out of Java land for a second because I'm using CSS. I'm going to go to my HTML file. And up here in the head of my HTML file, I am going to add a style, and luckily IntelliJ fills in a lot of this for me because I can never remember all this nonsense. And I'm going to say .gwt text area. And it's not smart enough to know that it exists, but it will. And then I want to say what? Font family? And
Font family fixed width or something. So
Courier! Do I want font? Is there a font family fixed width?
Yeah, because some people have certain monospace, maybe. I don't know.
Fantasy. Well, I'm not going to go there because it's being recorded. Georgia? Yeah. Monospaced? Perhaps? Okay, well, let's see what this does.
And then you can pick font, Courier, or whatever.
Oh, there's font family, and then there's font.
Another monospace font that isn't Courier, then you'll pick that one second.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about CSS. It's too confusing. I'm not smart enough to figure that out. Okay. So let me turn off debugging here. Okay, or that. I found that it sometimes takes a code that is not fixed width. What I had to do last time is I had to view the page source and notice that it hadn't been updated, and I had to reload this. So whenever I did the reload, it didn't reload everything. I'm not too sure exactly, but now I see it, so that's good. So
sometimes I've had to reload twice.
Yeah. Weird.
Shift refresh will do a force
I was
refresh
doing shift refresh just now. It didn't seem to happen, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know now. Oh, that looks like. Yeah, what is that? Yeah, that's looking fixed with right there. Okay, great. So now I've got a better looking board. Okay, cool. So here was an example of where I had to go out of Java land, right? And not surprisingly, I'm kind of swimming because I'm like, I don't know anything about font stuff and everything like that. But it worked. So okay, good. So now whenever I have in my application, whenever I have a text area that's created by GWT, it's going to be fixed with font. Yay! Okay, excellent. Okay, so where are we? I'm just going to commit this off. So always use a fixed width font for text areas or GWT text areas. Push it out. Sure. Okay, so great. I've got this thing for editing a board. Editing a level. It's time for a break. But when we come back, we're going to then add that button that says, "Okay, great. You've just edited the level. Now I want to go and create one so I can play it." So we'll see how to do that, and that's where we'll start talking about using the GWT remote stuff. So let's take a 10-minute break. We'll come back when the big hand's on the one.
Is there a way to